Let's go over functions as arguments. So we can pass in a function as an argument to another function. So let's create two functions for this test. Let's say the swap AB integer, and then it's going to return 2. So all this is doing, let's swap these. All this function is going to do is going to swap the values. We can test this out. Let's call it 1, 2. And then we'll run it. You can see it swaps. So another function we could do, let's call it increment. And this is going to follow the same signature as the other function, where it takes 2 integers and also returns 2. And here we're just going to return a plus 1, b plus 1. Let's also print this out. And then run that. So now you can see we have 2, 3 for this increment. Now let's create a function that will take one of these functions as an argument. So let's call this func transform. Now this is the name of the function. We're just going to call it f, and the signature is func, and it's very similar to what we defined down here, except we don't pass in the variables. So we'll go int, and then it'll return an int, and then also the transform function itself also has to take an argument. So we'll call this a b int. And then this is going to return 2 integers. So it's kind of a lot to see this, and you would never see this in the real world. This is just an example for this lecture, and then without introducing structs and other language features, this is what we're going to start with, and then we're going to come back to an example where functions as arguments makes quite a bit more sense. Return. Now we're going to call the function, but we're also going to pass in a and b into there. Let's call this transform. And now we can pass in swap. And then we could also do the same thing for increment. Now let's run this. So now you can see that it gives us the same result, even though we're passing in the function here. Now looking at this function signature, it's very difficult to read. One thing we can do is to define a type declaration, which allows us to make a signature for this function easier to read. So let's call this transform func, and it'll just be the same signature here. So we can just cut it and paste it, and then we can put this in its place. And we can see it runs just the same. Now what happens if we pass a function in here that doesn't match the signature? Let's try that. Multiply. So we're only returning one value here. So let's copy this line. And now we can see that here's the error. Cannot use multiply because there are different types. And this is an example how we can use a type declaration to make the function signature much easier to read.